Hey everybody, Drew here, and this is a 2004 Toyota Prius. I'm filming this on December 2nd, 2023, which means officially the second gen Prius, which of course ran from 2004 to 2009, is 20 years old. And let me be the first to say happy birthday. This is easily the best car ever made in the normal price range segment. Probably the most high quality, all around the board vehicle ever made was the UFC 30 and 31 Toyota Celsior and Lexus LS 430, which ran from 2000 to 2006. Multi-million mile examples out there, but in the normal segment, this car is probably better. I mean, when you consider its affordability, its gas mileage, its cost of ownership, this is the better choice. These cars are absolutely phenomenal. And if you're a subscriber on this channel, hey, real quick, love you guys. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. If you love these cars and you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe because we love them too. And we put tons of videos on here for you guys to keep them running. So the purpose of this video, other than to say happy birthday to, in my opinion, again, the best car ever made, all things considered, is to tell you guys, at 20 years old, should you still consider this car? I'm filming this in 2023, and we're in one of the worst times of inflation, the worst in my 36 years, and most people alive would agree that, other than the Carter days, and this is not a political channel, but it's kind of, I guess, fact, right? Carter made a mess and Reagan cleaned it up. Anyways, other than those times, the last time interest rates on houses were like 8-9%. That was the last time inflation was this bad. And this car, if it was one of our normal inventory, this is still like this is a $5,000 car. It was like 20 grand new. So is it still worth it at 20 years old to pay that kind of money for one of these with like 200,000 miles on it? So stay tuned for the answer. But again, for those of you who know me, I'm sure you know what it is. So Pella Cars is our family business. My wife and I started it, it'll be 5 years soon ago, and we quickly fell into these beautiful cars and bringing them up from the south. Rochester is usually covered in snow this time of year, and we have salt on our roads 6 months a year. We have some of the rustiest cars there are. For example, this is my plow truck. It's a 1999. It's only got 125,000 miles on it, and that's good condition. This is my wife's Honda Odyssey. These typically don't rust, and look at that. You know what I mean? This is a rusty area. Our MO, our normal approach, is to bring these up from Maryland and down. We bring them, we've got in stock right now, for example, we've got one from Greensboro in Franklin, North Carolina, and we've got one from Birmingham, Alabama, that underneath the nuts and bolts are still silver and black. It's incredible because these cars don't die, but if they rust out, they do. This one was a trade-in, and it's not your typical Pella Cars vehicle, but we're saving it because it's a good car. We're saving it for somebody that has a need, that can't afford, $5,000-$6,000 for a perfect Southern one, that can grab this for maybe $3,500. So even at $3,500, the question is this still a good buy? You could get a car 10 years newer for that, maybe like a Hyundai Accent or an Elantra or like a Chevy Cruze. So let's go over the 2004 to 2009 Prius and what can go wrong. First of all, we should back up a little bit and point out that people think Toyota Prius came out in 2001. False. They came out in December of 1997 in Japan, and that was not the Gen 1 like we got in 2001. It was Gen 0. It looked the same at a quick glance, but it was quite different. The most important difference is that the cells in the battery pack, which is about the size, it's located, let's see if we are unlocked here. It's located right here, and it's about the size of a box that a pair of like cowboy boots or, high boots that a woman would wear come in. And it weighs about maybe 90 pounds. The battery in a Gen 0, 1997 through about 2000, they were cylindrical cells, not the square prismatic. We literally, had our finger over the mouse, almost just bought a 1998 Prius with only 100,000 kilometers on it in Japan and shipped it here, but we were worried about selling it to somebody that would then have a battery-related problem that we couldn't solve, even if it was out of warranty or whatever, which, a 25-year-old car doesn't have, but we want to be able to at least help, and that's why we decided for now not to bring one in until we get some cells from China for it. Anyways, so the 1997 to 2001 Prius, they started developing that in like the mid-90s when Ford was, ramping up the Explorer and the Expedition and the Excursion. Toyota thought this was a good idea. And it's funny because at first people made fun of them, but these are phenomenal cars. It used to be only, you know, tree huggers and liberals and yada, yada, yada. Sorry if that offends you. That's not what this is about. You see these cars now with like Trump stickers on them and saving money for ammo with hunting graphics and all that. No, it's not a niche or a cult followed vehicle like it used to be. I mean, I see these lifted with off-road tires on them. They're very loved. And Toyota way over-engineered the zero, first, and second generations to build that reputation. And unfortunately, a lot of that went away in the 2010 and newer. We'll get into that a little bit more later. So, things that can go wrong with this car. It's important to keep in mind that aside from the engine and the transmission, it's a power split device. So we'll actually pop the hood and talk about these things when you can see them. So the engine is Toyota's 1NZ. That is one Nancy Zebra. But instead of being 1NZ FE, electronic fuel injection, it's 1NZ FX. That's X-ray E. And the X stands for the Atkinson cycle because, you know, the hybrid engine, the engine needs to be able to be turned over more freely by the hybrid system and more efficiently than a regular cycle, four-stroke engine, right? So Atkinson cycle is different. You could look that up. So you've got an engine, just a normal engine. It's the same engine for the most part, other than the Atkinson cycle that goes way back into the 90s. And we saw it, I think, first in the Toyota Echo. And of course, it was famous in the Yaris. And then this is the inverter. This is what converts voltage from the, I think it's like 244, I forgot the exact number, but the DC battery to AC for the motor and to a lower voltage of DC to take the place of an alternator, about 14 volts. But underneath that is what's called a power split device. And what that is the engine goes into a spring-loaded plate that allows some articulation or actuation, if you will. And then it has an electric motor that serves as a starter to kick that bad boy over, or a generator. When that's running, it creates power in that. Then there's a planetary gear through to motor generator 2, which is a generator. When you press the brakes and the wheels, it uses that to put resistance on the wheels, which generates electricity and goes to the battery. Motor generator 1 can power the battery, or it can power motor generator 2, which when it's in motor mode, moves the car. Unfortunately, motor generator 1 was never able to power the car until they put in what's called a scrag clutch, which means it can't spin the engine backwards. The engine stops it and makes the power go through to the wheels. That started with the plug-in Priuses, which is genius, right? Just add a scrag clutch and it works. That's a really loose explanation. That's not what this video is about. But so there is never a direct contact between the engine and the wheels. All of these vehicles here, they have what's called a torque converter, and it allows the engine to continue moving while the transmission is stopped. And then the force, if you will, like one boat's propeller against another boat's, gets everything moving. And then there's a lockup clutch in there. When about 40 miles per hour, usually these vehicles will all have a locked connection in there, just like a clutch in a manual car, where the engine and the wheels are connected mechanically. That never happens here. It's connected by electromagnetic fields, which is responsible for the awesome feel that these cars have when you drive them. They're like a Tesla with a generator charging it kind of thing, to oversimplify how they feel. To give you an idea, the transmission in these is so reliable and so infrequently in need of replacement that you could find them as low as $99 for sale online, and most of your local junkyards that aren't flat rate will charge you less than a couple $100 for one. The engine is so bulletproof that an engine for one of these is between $500 and $700. Not so much the case in the 2010, which is known to blow head gaskets. The engine for those is like $1,700. An engine for this is like $1,000. An engine for that is, they're hard to come by, but they're like $3,500. That's a 4.7 liter, not a 5.7. So, relatively inexpensive here. But before I went down the rabbit hole of what's under the hood, I was going to say, outside of that difference in the battery, this is a normal car. It has, brake rotors and brake calipers. It has ball joints and tie rods, and those things can wear out. But again, this car was obsessively over-engineered by Toyota. I mean, obsessively. I've seen these, firsthand accounts from people who bought them new. The highest mileage one-owner one we've ever come across was an older couple, super sweet couple. They had 340-ish thousand. Their odometer stopped working at 299,000. and they said they maybe replaced a couple wheel bearings, but not all of them. I mean, that's incredible. You know, I mean, for something to last that long, the 2010 and newer, I mean, you could expect 120,000 out of wheel bearings as a rule of thumb. And again, selling about 50 to 75 of these a year for many years, you know, take it from me, we know. So, you know, there are normal car things that can go wrong. So if you're not at all mechanically inclined and you jump into a 200,000 mile vehicle, forget the fact that it's a Prius. I mean, it has bearings and brake pads and brake shoes and things like that can go wrong. If you're in a northern area, you've got to consider the exhaust. But when you consider the fact that, you know, another good story, one of our customers, I won't say his name, he traded in a 424,000 mile Generation 2 that the day before he was in Columbus, Ohio, and then the next morning traded it into us. That one had replaced one he totaled on our True Powell Bridge, the bridge that goes over the river on I-490 in Rochester here. He totaled it at over 860,000 miles. So when you're getting, you know, 45 miles to the gallon and you're not dealing with engines and transmissions and clutches, you could afford wheel bearings and brakes. And by the way, tires for this, I've put a set of tires on one of these cars for like $200. Everything is inexpensive because it's smaller and it's not high performance. So, you know, so consider that. If your budget's $5,000 and you buy a 200,000 mile Prius, I'm inclined to believe still, and with a lot of experience both with cars and with finances, that is a better decision than a $5,000 like Ford Focus or Chevy Cruze or Cobalt or whatever, because the thing's going to run longer. But expect to put some money into even ours. I mean, we make sure our cars are perfect for our customers, but I mean, it's a 200,000 mile, you know, in this case, 20-year-old car. It's never going to be perfect. And that expectation, and this isn't, you know, a dismissal of our quality or even a plug for our business. It's just, you know, trying to explain to you guys, there needs to be the expectation that with a 20-year-old or, you know, in the case of the 2009, you know, a 15-year-old vehicle, you're going to have to put stuff into it. But when you're talking about, you know, engines and transmissions, you're not. So all the things that can go wrong with these cars that are hybrid specific, we're going to call them the big three. Number one, your hybrid battery. This is 28 cells. They're about 8 volts each. The little charge indicator on the dash, it looks like, you know, fully charged, fully drained. That's really only focusing in on the range from about 7.2 to about 8.5 volts. The battery's happy at about 7.8 volts. That is the cells. There's 28 of them. And they're in what's called blocks. So there's 14 blocks, and that's 2 of them. And then they're all wired, you know, in such a way that their output voltage is the sum, right? So they're in, that would be parallel, right? Parallel wiring instead of series. No, excuse me, series. Nevertheless, I could show you the inside of one if you want to see it, but the battery can go wrong. And I remember as a kid, not a kid, but a young adult, when these came out, you know, it was on the news. Oh, you know, the Toyota Prius, it's $6,000 for a battery. Toyota's wholesale price, meaning what they pay for a battery, before a little bit of markup that I pay, is about $2,000 for one of these brand new. They charge about 4 hours of labor to put one in. I could do it in 45 minutes. So if I'm, you know, I've been a technician or a mechanic, whatever I am, I'm trying to be humble here, right? I've been, you know, doing this for 20 years, wrenching on cars. But if I'm in, you know, our business up until a few weeks ago was run out of that 24 by 24 attached garage. Now we're in a 21 by 46 shop, no lift, not even heat. And if I could do it in 45 minutes, why can't Toyota? They get 4.5 hours to do it, and they charge $2,000 for the battery. So here's the truth. There's companies out there like Green Bean. They'll charge you $2,000 to come to your house with a rebuilt one, put it in, they leave, and it's about a 2-year warranty. There's people in just every big metro area. I'm not one of them, though I could be. But, you know, Rochester has a guy. For $500, he brings you a rebuilt battery, takes your old one, and he puts a 6-month warranty on it. That's $500. My wife's minivan here, this is Jade's 2007 Honda Odyssey. It's got 211,000 miles on it. The alternator went on it twice because we've had it forever. And there's no way I'm touching that job for $500. It is a horrible, horrible, miserable job. I mean, you figure you got a $250 alternator and about 3 hours of labor. I mean, that's $600 all day at a reputable shop. So for less than that, The hybrid battery, which, you know, the first one should last, and this is a huge misconception, by the way. There is no, you know, people ask me all the time, customers, how long does it last? You know, how long do they last? How long till it needs, no. It's like the battery in an iPhone. You know, my grandmother just replaced her iPhone 6 yesterday. Again, this is 2023, December 1st, 2023. She finally just got rid of her iPhone 6. I'm on an iPhone 11 and it needs to be replaced, right? So, you know, it's going to totally depend on how the car's driven, the climate, how long its drive cycles are. But the point is, you know, once it's replaced, you should get at least another couple years out of those rebuilt ones for $500, or just spend the $2,000 and watch a YouTube video on how to put it in. It's not hard. So the big one, what about the hybrid battery? This completely defunks that. It's not a big concern. An alternator for this guy or that or any of these cars, an alternator, which is gonna go in like 150,000 miles. That is, other than that Camry Solero right there, I mean, that's an involved job. That one sits right on top and it would be cheaper. But, you know, so that's completely defunct. That is not a reason not to buy this car. Moving on, the worst thing I've ever had to do with one of these cars. If you look inside there, you see that white clip right there, you can see it right in the dead center of your screen. There's a white clip. That is a clip on the harness for what's called the brake booster in this car. So when you press the brakes, you're telling the computer you want to slow down. The computer then decides how much of that slowing down is going to be done with resistance on motor generator 2, which will slow you down. In theory, you can drive this car and never use the brake pads until you get below 8 miles per hour. Obviously, if you jam on the brakes, it's like, whoa, we need to stop this thing now. So it pushes the calipers in the front and the rear. That is the electronic gizmo that is used to create brake pressure. Obviously, it can't work on vacuum like that or any of these cars. Well, that's a Camry from Japan over there with a diesel engine, so that doesn't generate vacuum. It has a vacuum pump. Anyways, I digress. You can't count on the engine's vacuum because it's not always running. So this is an electric motor that creates fluid pressure. And the computer decides when you push the brake pedal how much of that brake pressure to use, or how much of, you know, or what combination of, or how much of motor generator 2's resistance it's going to use to, you know, that's called regenerative braking. It makes power go back to the battery, so then when you press the gas again, it comes out and powers the car. So that is a big one. Big. I mean, that job is, I would charge, you know, using a good known used one of those is about $500. I would probably personally do the job on a not rusty vehicle for, I guess, if I was a repair shop and not a car dealership, maybe $800. But I'm selling myself way short. It's just because I've done it enough to, you know, I don't want to take advantage of people. You know, you want to try to bless people and keep the cars on the road. I mean, at the Toyota dealership, that's at least a $4,500 job. If you're sensing a theme here, the Toyota dealerships, they're a ripoff. I mean, you'll go in with 2 flat tires and they'll change the engine computer to eliminate that as a possible problem, you know. And you could look that up for yourself. That comes with, again, 20 years of experience. So that is a really, really big deal. And it's hard to stop one of these cars once that goes bad. Trust me, I've had to do it. The other big thing is, this is an engine. The inside of an internal combustion engine is the most violent place on the surface of the earth. It's several thousand explosions per minute. The thing wants to tear itself apart, but it's balanced in such a way that it doesn't. And gasoline degreases things, but it needs oil to not wear itself out. It's just a horrible place. I mean, it's like hell on earth in a little, you know, a little 250-pound piece of aluminum. Eventually, that's going to wear out. Big thing you need to know, I believe it's on about page 663 of the manual, says that these cars can consume up to a quart of oil every 600 miles. The page is not verbatim, the page number, but that figure is a quart every 600 miles, and that's a new car. How much do you think this one burns at 230,000 miles? Probably a little bit more than that, right? So, I urge all of you to check your oil. I mean, all these cars, this thing doesn't burn oil. We still check it like every couple times we get gas. That thing, it does burn a little, but I check it more than I need to. Check your oil. It's free to do, and it'll save you an engine. Again, that engine, if that was the 5.7 liter Tundra, that's a $6,000 engine on a pallet, and then you got to put it in. This, again, $500, $600, $700. But a gasoline engine is a wear item. It's not like brake pads, but it's going to wear out, period. It's a diesel engine like that, much less so. Diesel is oil, so it doesn't, you know, it's not fighting a degreaser and a greaser, right? the engine wears out. It's really hard to say what a fair market value is for that job. Again, the engine is $500, $600, $700 used, maybe $1,000 if you want a super low mile one. It's an all-day job. So, I mean, somebody that's really trying to work with you and bless you is going to charge you maybe $1,200 for that. And before anybody gets judgmental, wow, $100 an hour? Yes, a repair shop. I know a couple guys, they're a 2-guy shop, and it's that real estate is not expensive where I'm talking about, and it costs them about $6,500 a month just to be open. $100 an hour is nothing. Your dealer is getting, if you're watching this in a, I mean, to give you an idea, this house is worth about 320 grand, 2,100 square feet on 3/4 of an acre in a good neighborhood. This is a very inexpensive area to live. Our Toyota dealership is $165 an hour. If you're watching this in LA or Miami or New York City, it's probably a lot more. So your independent guy or girl that's charging you $100 an hour, they're being kind. So, and please never, ever, ever underestimate the value of somebody that can do something that you can't. They work very hard, they pay a lot of overhead, and they deserve what they charge as long as they're doing good work and they're not being abusive, right? So figure maybe $1,700 to have this done, or if you've got some stick-to-itiveness, I know for a fact this engine, when you take out the windshield wiper tray, which is easy, this engine comes right out the top. The hardest part about changing this engine is things like exhaust bolts and little rusty bolts that can go wrong, and then, bleeding the cooling system sucks. So that is the 3 big things that can go wrong. I also want to talk to you guys about some common problems with these cars. We're going to shut the hood because I'm probably going to take you guys for a ride. So some common problems with these cars. While we're back here, we'll talk about little annoyances. I can't tell you how many of these I get where this thing is ripped off. Not hard, hand tools, a pry bar, and a couple 12mm bolts. You get a black one or a carbon fiber or a chrome one, or a primed one and a $30 can of paint. It's like $35 for this part. That happens a lot. The muffler, which is right here. You can see that guy. The muffler, the exhaust system comes along the side of the car here, and it goes up over the rear axle. It's like a live beam axle, and on its downward slope, I'll actually link a video in the description where I show you how to fix it. There is a little nubby welded on, and those welds rust out, and that actually is known to split in half, so the exhaust can get loud. Not that it's something wrong with the car, it's something wrong with our culture. The catalytic converters get stolen. At one point they were worth $1,600 at the time of filming. Now they're worth about $600. So this could be a big deal. These screens are known to go bad, and they're about maybe $450 used on eBay. The clock spring, that's the device that allows all these electronics to communicate through a wheel that spins. The clock spring is known to go bad, and when it does, just this guy right here shows the symptoms. That's a $25 part on Amazon. No need to link. Yeah, that's a $25 part on Amazon. And you need to obviously be safe, disconnect your battery when you do it. But it's definitely a DIY job. Maybe I'll post a video on it if enough people ask. A really big one, the gauges go black. They look like that when you're driving, and it affects the function of your power button. Newsflash, Toyota, again, is at like $1,500 for the part and for 4 or 5 hours in labor or something like that. I can do that job and actually repair the gauge cluster with a 25 cent capacitor, and I've done the job. My record is 49 minutes, meaning the airbags were out. Well, not this one, excuse me. That airbag was out. These were out. The screen, everything, the whole dashboard out, flipped upside down, took the gauge cluster off, desoldered the old one, soldered a new one in. Car was back together and on its way to the customer. And again, 49 minutes is my record. Not that I always like to work that fast. So I would charge maybe $200, $250 for that job because it is grueling. I should have given myself 2 hours. And again, I'm saving you, several, not you, and I'm not offering, and I don't do repair work usually, but, if I did, I'm saving somebody thousands of dollars. It's worth a couple $100 to do. So those are, of having hundreds of these cars, those are the things that have plagued the ones I have. The air conditioning in this vehicle is electric. If that goes wrong, it will be expensive. It's not the end of the world, though. You could roll down the windows. We are talking about, a 20-year-old car. So, this one, if you're curious, so it was traded in. It was a bit of a train wreck. The hybrid battery was dead. A guy that you might know reworked it. It's got I don't know what that squeak is. By the way, all cars from Japan that are bought in Japan, we buy cars in Japan, have that reverse beep. They kept it in the US version of the Prius because I'm assuming they don't want you to run yourself over when you step out in reverse because you don't feel the engine running. So it does have some gremlin in this front wheel. It has like a grinding and a pop. I assume that it is a failed CV axle. I was wrong on the mileage. We're at 202,000. This is we'll call it a Rochester car. It's a far southeastern suburb of Rochester, maybe 30 minutes southeast out of Rochester. And again, it showed up with a bad hybrid battery and some other little gremlins, but I rebuilt the hybrid battery and I've done nothing else. I haven't even, taken some of the dust off the dashboard. And as you see, this car goes down the road perfectly. My own father, him and his wife keep one nice car, one new car, and he refuses to spend more than like $1,000 on his beater because they really only need one car. And I was like begging him to take this for what I paid for it because it's such a nice car. I want my own dad to take it. I've taken my kids to karate class in this car. We're going 54 miles per hour. My hand's off the wheel. I'm gonna straighten up a little bit here. I hit the brakes, stops perfectly straight, drives perfectly straight. This car, and you could feel it, this car has, by the way, it was ice cold when I started it. This car has an absurd amount of life left in it. I would absolutely, like I said, I rebuilt the hybrid battery. I know I did it right. The engine is fantastic. We know the transmissions don't fail. If I was to check the ball joints, the brakes, everything on this car to make sure they're good, put my money where my mouth is. I have 4 kids, so I can't drive a Prius as a family unless one of them sat on the center console, right? But I would take my kids across the country in this car, and it is 20 years old. This thing is bulletproof, and it's still, right now, well, it's kind of hard to say because I also put a new 12-volt battery in it, but in the abuse of all the idling that it's done and being, 40 degrees out and all that, it's still averaging 36.4 miles to the gallon. With the rebuilt hybrid battery, this girl should probably be at about 45 miles per gallon, maybe 48 in the warm months if you're really trying. So to recap, you've now seen all the things that are Prius, second generation Prius specific that can go wrong with these cars. Yes, some of them are big, but all things considered, keep in mind, as an owner of a small car dealership, I buy about 100 cars a year. I can't tell you, there's a video on here, I'll link it in the description. We just bought a 276,000 mile Prius, 276,000 for a customer that said, hey, it's just gotta be rust free, anything else wrong with it, I don't care. Of course, being New York State, I have to make sure it passes inspection. But, he didn't care. The thing came off the truck perfect, literally perfect. Checked the oil, jumped in it, put 100 miles on it. There was nothing wrong with the car. He called me 2 weeks later and well, I've been looking for a reason to put this thing on my lift, but I just don't have one. He had a headlight bulb go. And when it came to me, it had 2 reverse lights and this digitizer. So the screen worked, but it didn't respond to touch. 276,000 miles. You're not going to get that out of a Chevy Cruze, that experience. Maybe a couple people are. You're not going to get it out of a Ford Focus. You're not going to get it out of a Hyundai Accent. You're not going to probably even get it out of a Corolla or a Civic. These cars, yeah, you got to buy an older one with more miles on it for the same money, but this is the best car on the road. So, now that you've seen everything that could go wrong, you have an idea of what it should cost, bearing in mind that normal car stuff, brakes, exhaust systems, ball joints, things like that still go wrong, tires wear out, and windshield wiper blades. All things considered, I started this video with a question. Happy birthday, second gen Prius. Should you still buy one? My answer is absolutely. I am by no means doing this to plug my own business. If you're anywhere in the Northeast or anywhere in the country really, we ship. I buy tons of these that are Southern, that have no rust on them, that are in great shape, fix anything they have, and sell them to people all the time. This is the best car on the road. People ask me, unless you're towing 5,000 pounds or you're like me and you've got 4 kids and you need a minivan, this is the best car on the road for you. I don't care if you can drive a $70,000 Mercedes. This gets you to work just probably more reliably than that. Spend your money on something else. This is the best car on the road. So again, to answer the question, now that it's 20 years old, should you still consider a second gen Prius? Absolutely. Anyways, I'm Drew, owner of Pella Cars here in Rochester, New York. That's kind of crossing a line, but I'm okay with it. I've had probably 150 of these. Absolutely love them. I can only think of one second generation Prius that showed up so bad I had to send it back to auction. The head gasket was blown, and it just economically didn't make enough sense to deal with. It made more sense to, to just unload the car and take the loss. The best car on the market, hands down, when all things are considered. So I hope this video helped you. If it did and you decided to buy one, if you're on the fence and this helped you pull the trigger, please reach out in the comments. I'd love to know about it. I love these cars. I love people that love these cars. If you've got any other questions, reach out. If enough people ask the same thing, maybe I'll make a video. And again, I'm going to try to reference some of the videos that I talked about in this one in the description. Be sure to check those out. Definitely like the video if it was helpful or entertaining, and subscribe to the channel if you like these cars. So, hey, God bless you guys. If you buy one, I wish you nothing but safe, happy, and efficient miles. Take care. Bye.